want to throw it to my panel. Tanza na EKURU AUKOT, tuambie wiki yake imekuwa vipi?
My week has been very good, Bitok. First of all, yesterday we had a very somber mood when we, the former committee of experts, congregated at Pan-Africa Hotel to honor our former chairman, Senior Counsel Nzamba Kitonga. We walked back memory lane, how we made the constitution, the current constitution of Kenya 2010, the negotiations, and how Nzamba Kitonga steered this process to its finality. And one of the things that people do not know, by the way, that when we started this process sometimes in March 2009, the government actually said that it did not have money. And through Nzamba Kitonga's leadership, we vowed that this was a call to national duty. It's a call for patriotism. And we actually worked for 4 months without pay.
Yeah. Back in the constitution.
Without pay, without an office. And therefore, so yesterday for me, it took me back 11 years ago when we were writing the Kenya's constitution, and you know, all the theatrics, the nuances, the politics, the pressure, external. And remember that was during the coalition government of Mwai Kibaki under PNU and Raila Odinga under the code. So the pressures were, too much. Everybody wanted a certain aspect, certain things to be reflected in the constitution. But see, as the committee of experts, the guys in the steering wheel, we stood our ground under the leadership of Nzamba Kitonga, the late Nzamba Kitonga, and we eventually, delivered a constitution for Kenyans. And I remember one of the things that we are reflecting yesterday in the writing of the Kenya Constitution was the craziest of all proposals coming from the Parliamentary Select Committee. When they went to Naivasha, when we gave them the first harmonized draft of November 2009, and when they went to Naivasha, they came back with a proposal saying that Senate should be a lower house. I remember we had a meeting with them somewhere in Karen, and we asked them, please make us understand. Even looking at the entire world, where, yes, we have proposed a bicameral house, but where in the world is Senate a lower house? So little did they know, some of them, including Akina Wetangula, James Orengo, who are then in the PSC, who later on end up as senators, and they wished that Senate was a upper house with veto power. And Kenya is a very interesting country, and so in 2019-2020, when I proposed the Punguza Mizigo to elevate Senate to a upper house with veto power, same senators actually refused to support Punguza Mizigo. So I don't really know what Kenyans want. So even as we talk about Sharia Wiki, sometimes I wonder, when we try to bring some of these legal aspects impacting on our political, arrangements or machinations, whether actually Kenyans embrace, the idea of law, the idea of our country being a country of the rule of law, a country of democracy, checks and balance. I know we'll come to my friend, ambassador now to South Korea, and discuss, for example, how she managed to present her papers to South Korea without going through the vetting process, which is a check and balance on the executive appointment. Yeah, but so that's what my week was. It's been a very quiet week. Also a little bit unwell. And some, some allergic attack, but it was okay. I'm a big boy. I can take some blows.
You've seen worse things in Turkana.
I've seen worse things in life, including surviving from Kapedo to Nairobi, dodging bullets.
But something is coming out very interesting about the constitutional process, as you've mentioned, of Constitution 2010. Yeah. And you're saying that the people who actually started the whole process was you. Many people would imagine that that constitution was a government project.
Well, no, it wasn't. Remember, the constitution-making process arose out of the post-election violence. It was one of the agenda for our institutions. And, it's a process that is a culmination of almost a 20-year agitation period. Start from the agitation for repeal of Section 2A, or talk about 1988 when the Mlolongo system, the electoral system, people wanted change of that system. So you can talk about a 20-year period, depending on when we became conscious about the kind of governance that we have in Kenya. But you can also go back to the era of the colony, when colonial administration was imposed on Kenyans, and of course it imposed a system of governance. And Kenyans said, no, The Mau Mau reaction to colonial rule was actually an opposition to a system of governance, which was in quote unquote sort of constitution defined from a colonial perspective. So the periods when we agitated for a constitution is debatable. Is it the 20-year period up to the culmination of the 27th of August 2010, or is the period when we had these foreigners, colonialists, invading our country and imposing a certain system of governance in Kenya? So yeah, I mean, but the truth of the matter is the 2010 constitution was people-driven, because as a driver then in the committee of experts, as a CEO and also a member, we went to the people, and the people told us what they wanted included in this constitution. In fact, one of the reflections we had yesterday as the former committee of experts with other members of the civil society was, you know, it's unfortunate that a people-driven process can now be subjected to a business of only two individuals, President Uhuru Kenyatta and his political brother Raila Odinga, and of course their surrogates. This is not really the agitation to amend the constitution today is not really people driven. You can see the choreography. You can see the choreography. You can see the intimidation. You can see the bribery. I mean, MCS now are going to take home 4.5 billion Kenya shillings. And it's not even clear for us whether it is just this MCS, the current MCS, 1450 of them, well, to about 2,000 of them plus, or it will also be the next MCS who will be elected in the next general election. And if they will be elected in the next general election, the guys who are now benefiting with the 2 million car grant, will they also get another car grant if they are re-elected in the 2022? So the whole thing is a farce. It's unfortunate that it's part of the whole privatization of Kenya and the ownership of Kenya by a few individuals who think that they wield so much influence. I don't even think we can talk of oligarchs in the context of Kenya. These are poor fellows. They cannot, oligarchs can prove how they acquired their wealth. Some of these folks cannot prove how they acquired their wealth, and that's the bottom line. You tell me where President Uhuru Kenyatta worked. But you can pull my CV on the internet and say where I worked. Maybe you can pull Arnold's CV and say, he worked here. But supposedly it's supposed to be rich people who are controlling. Where did Raila Amolo Odinga work? Where did, the rest of this, Kalonzo Musyoka? Nowhere. Huh? I still run my legal practice, even as I do politics. So, yeah, that was my week, a week of reflection of what's happening to our country. Of course, like I said, for us, the committee of experts, we went back memory lane and thought about how we made this constitution. And we really were organizing yesterday. How do we protect this constitution, which was really people-driven, from being mutilated by just a tiny minority of individuals in Kenya? And, we call upon Kenyans. It is the document. So whether the MCAs will be bulldozed to pass this document at the county assemblies, as we can see is happening, but eventually the decision will have to rest with the majority of Kenyans in a referendum. So it is the Kenyans who will actually decide, do we want to change our constitutional order, or do we want, to keep it as it is? Or, one of the things that emerged yesterday as we met as a committee of experts was what really is the common good in the current proposed amendments to the constitution through BBI? And that's a fundamental question to ask. And, I'm sure Wakili Arnold also has a view on, how his week was.
Arnold, I think for you, we'll not even ask you how your week has been. We'll ask you how your year has been, because the last time we saw you was in last year, last program. Well, you've not come in this year.
I think on the 6th session you did.
Oh, really?
Yes. I've been
he's been here this year. Oh, okay, quite interesting. So how was your month's been?
Well, my month has been easy. It's February. Of course, it's upper January, so we were trying to cobble up and just get to normalcy. Of course, normalcy is now a very difficult word to even define because...
it depends on where you are from.
Not really where you work from, because everything is so different. From school, if you are people in our 30s, like myself, we were used to school being from January to November. Now, all of a sudden, even schooling and everything else is different. But the week for me has been so much around BBI. not really outside that, because so much of this week we've seen county assemblies bring in, and then there were guys in Baringo fighting the other day, you know, and I was actually arguing with the chairperson of the county assemblies forum that the people who are supporting, a majority of the people who are supporting and those who are opposing are not necessarily doing that out of any fundamental reason. People are doing it out of solidarity with different causes that have nothing completely to do with the constitution. Even where there are few things, like in my opinion, I still feel like the biggest thing in the in this particular process is Article 27.8, around 2/3. That's the only thing. And again, they're doing it wrong, because we are going to nominate this. They are proposing nominating people massively, and you need to look at how we are treating nominated leaders. I've told you about I've told you before about MCAs in Nairobi, for example. The nominated ones, when they, for example, tried to exercise independence, they were taught a little bit of a fear of God. They were sent home. Even when they came with stay orders, they have never been allowed to go back to the assembly. You know, that's how bad it is. That they got court orders, but they cannot even park in the county assembly's parking. You know how bad that is? You know, we are...
Terrorism.
As in, we really have... Anarchy has come home. And at the moment, it looks like it's funny because it's with the leaders and within government circles. But normally, once people realize that the rule of law means nothing, that even if I went to court, it means nothing, then people start practicing anarchy on their own. On that particular day when we were cheering as Miguna was sent out of this country, I think he has got up to 14, is it 12 or 14 court orders? And we ignored, and people just thought that was easy, and it had everything to do with the 30th January 2018. We were allowing in so much to happen. The third estate of the state, which is the civil society, was mutilated while we were here. We just made noise, wrote articles, and that was all. But over time now, you realize that as a state, we actually dysfunctional. One of the reasons why there has not been a sufficient voice of the people in the BBI process. And I still insist, when I actually had an interview with the CAF person and some other guys from Kericho on Monday, they argued that, of course, this is a popular thing, it's from the people. And I told them it's true, Uhuru and Raila are people, but not necessarily the people in the preamble of our constitution. It's true. Those two are actually, by definition, they are people, yes, but not the people as a
constitution inspires.
When you look at the preamble, we the people, they're not necessarily those we the people. So whereas they could be people, we can accept it's from the people, the two people, but it's not popular. So the question of whether this is a popular initiative or not then becomes an open one. It depends on how you are looking at it. So for me, it's been around that, and then I've realized that BBI will pass, whether we oppose it or not. Yeah, I have realized that if you look at the because in substance, you realize that the BBI document has got the whole document shouldn't be there in the first place. I was arguing if we really were interested in a national remaking process, then probably we should pick a lot of that. And in my estimation, about 90% of what is in the report now, a lot of it is just legislative, policy, and administrative stuff. We probably come up with a sessional paper, take it to cabinet, and then take it to parliament, and set aside budget to take care of it. Otherwise, it's not necessarily something that should then send us to the plebiscite, as it were, except for that Article 27.8, for one reason, that 5 times this process has gone to parliament, and 5 times those men we have sent to parliament have brought it down. So probably since we fail around that, and it is also stupid to have half of the population not participating effectively in governance spaces, because we have got women here who in many ways are actually a very important part of this society. There's so much they can actually bring in, but systemically we've made it very difficult for them to get into spaces where they can compete, especially at decision-making level. So, but then proposing that we just nominate them, then it's tokenism. We are tokenizing the whole process because we bring them in and then we control them at the political party level, where you come in and once you try to speak up, we call you home. You know, I'm trying to still imagine how a member of parliament or a member of a county assembly cannot go to the county assembly. You know, even representation the concept of representation in the first place, you are not going to the assembly. You can't do anything. Yet there is a constituency that you represent. And you know, nominated members of parliament, or rather nominated leaders, it's not like we are giving them free. They are elected. You know, sometimes we look at nomination and we want to look at them as lower leaders. They are not, because they also, we have got, at least in this country, we have got just 3 types of elections. The threshold one, where we are talking about the presidential one. At least we have got 50% plus 1 vote, at least 25%. There is a threshold to that definition. Then there is the first past the post. Governor, MCAs and MPs, senators, women rep, where even if you won with 1 vote, you are then declared the winner. Then there's the election by nomination. It's still votes that determine whether you end up in the assembly or not. It's still an election. So sometimes we want to treat them as lesser. It's a way of coming around with solving a few problems. So when we bring these people into the National Assembly, into the Senate, and into the county assemblies, and we do not want them to exercise a free will to think on their own, to represent their interest, then really it's useless to have them. Are they members of staff for parties?
But you know, Akili,
Yeah.
the reason sometimes they are treated as lesser members is their own conduct. Because when you are nominated, when you are elected through a nomination process, and you don't actually behave as an elected leader, you play subservient to the nominating body, then you are actually bringing into disrepute your own position. And that has been the problem, because I remember, for example, my experience when I was going to present the Punguza Mizigo Bill to the County Assembly of West Pokot. The people who literally manhandled me and actually wanted to chase us away were actually the nominated leaders. They behaved so dishonorably. They were actually heckling and not even allowing me to speak at the county assembly, despite an invitation from the speaker of the county assembly. So it's also their conduct and the way they have behaved over the years that actually made them look lesser members. And that's why it is the loudest, oftentimes, the uncouth, sometimes who end up being nominated. And once they get nominated there, they become the lapdogs, they become the attack dogs of other leaders. Just look at their conduct. You will hardly find any nominated member of parliament or MCA behaving honorably. They will actually be guns for hire, and they will be used either to tilt the balance. But Wakili, you made a very important point around Article 27. You see, Article 27 should not be the excuse for us to go to this referendum. For 2 reasons. Number one, nothing has stopped, for example, let's look at the cabinet. Nothing has stopped President Uhuru Kenyatta from using his powers under Article 132, if I'm not wrong, powers of the president, to ensure that there is 2/3 gender representation, even in cabinet alone. Yes. Because it is his baby. He can decide to compose it whichever way he wants it. So that is the law. It gives him power. We did not go to a constitutional amendment process, Wakili, to bring in CAS, Chief Administrative Secretaries.
Yes. And we did not start without portfolio.
Exactly. Yes, including a minister without portfolio, Tuju and the rest.
In my opinion, they're ghost workers, because what do they do?
Well, but you see, he used that. Actually, he abused the constitution. So now, what President Uhuru Kenyatta is trying to do, President Uhuru Kenyatta is trying to do, because he has failed to enforce Article 27, even in his own cabinet, even in appointment of ambassadors, PSS, and all those other positions, now he's using the excuse of amending the constitution, but we all know the end game. The end game is to change the constitution to accommodate these tribalists who say that we come from this populous region, we control X number of people, and therefore we want to come back as either prime minister, deputy prime minister, and whatever the case may be. Second reason I say 27 is very important, as you mentioned it, is the advisory opinion from the retired Justice David Maraga. David Maraga noted that Parliament, as you ably say, Akili, 5 times failed to pass legislation to bring about gender parity in Parliament. And therefore he advised the President to dissolve Parliament as per Article 261. And that is the law, that's the Constitution. So, and this takes me to another important point. There are people today in Kenya who are saying that let's implement the current Constitution. And Bitok, I've asked this many times in this show. Who do we want to implement the next Constitution? Look at the choreography towards 2022. Same people. Me, I call them system people. These are system people. There is no way today, unless you have got an outlier out there, say EKURU AUKOT or ARNOLD MALIBA, to become president, or even Bitok yourself to become president. That's when we can begin to realize the implementation of this constitution. Because then probably you will go back to the letter and spirit of the constitution. And this is the discussion we had yesterday as the former, committee of experts. When the letter is not clear, we go to the spirit. What did the framers of the constitution intend? What did the people of Kenya wanted in formulating this article? For example, when we say that let's have a chapter called leadership and integrity.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6. That we said we want a certain type and character of leaders to lead us. And therefore, when somebody has a checkered past or is of questionable character, we cannot ask such a person as our leader, because then that person will demean that office. That person will bring disrespect to the people he leads using that office. So again, when you have a president who refuses to actually dissolve parliament, when the letter of the constitution is very clear, when parliament fails to pass a certain legislation within certain time frame, parliament shall be dissolved. And in one of those issues was the gender issue. But what has President Uhuru done now with his Jubilee and his other surrogates is to try and bring the excuse of amending the constitution to fulfill Article 27. And trust me,
actually, it's not one of the biggest reasons to them.
Yes.
To them, they speak about the need to end the winner take it all, which in my thinking, and I told you last time, that anytime I try to apply logic, reason, and just the test of logic and reason on BBI, I find myself violently opposed to it. But then I realize that for politics sometimes, and in the general administration of the affairs of mankind, you realize that sometimes logic and reason do not even apply. There are times when this human affairs cannot be so much black. So it's for me, I actually was talking about, from my end, the only important thing I see they try to sneak in that particular document is Article 27.
But you see, Wakil, like I was saying, that is also, for me, actually a non-starter from their end.
Yeah.
It's a lie. Because today, nothing has stopped them from even just demonstrating administratively, or even legislatively, or even policy-wise, that we can actually achieve the third gender rule. By the way, even the idea of trying to stop the winner take it all, again, is another lie. It's another lie. Because nothing has stopped, for example, Jubilee and President Uhuru Kenyatta from signing a coalition agreement post-election with whoever he thinks needs to be brought on board, so that then Kenya can be unified. After all, assuming today even Raila Odinga and his ODM or NASA brigade were the reason or the problem in this country why Kenya is being disrupted. But they're in government now.
Already in government, yeah.
They're already in government. So then we don't need to amend the Kenya constitution to say we are now going to address this winner take it all, because already
it's in practice.
It's in practice.
We actually have got a prime minister.
Exactly.
And even as we look at that,
or actually two deputy presidents. We have got Deputy President Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga. We have Deputy President Ruto.
And then we have Prime Minister
Matiang'i in practice. So we don't really need to amend the constitution.
And even as you look at that, there are two things I want us to look at. There's something that you've really brought up that's very important, and I think Kenyans should understand about the constitution, the process of the constitution. And I think there's a reason why the makers of the Constitution 2010, which you were included, said we the people. And the question would be, when you talk about the constitutional process during that time, who agitated for the change of the, what was been the process, as compared to what we have today? Like you were saying, the government could not give you money. Then it means it was not a government project. It means it was a project of the people. This is different. It's being driven by the government. I want us to draw some comparisons on those things. And even before we get to that, you mentioned something about the proposal in BBI about fixing the winner takes it all. When you look at the structure as it is, there's a president who comes from the party that wins. The prime minister also comes from parliament, from the party with the majority of of MPs in parliament. And it goes without saying that most of the time in parliament, except 207, the president always has the majority in parliament. So it means we'll have the prime minister from the same party and the president from the same party.
Yes.
So I mean, what does it fix at the end of the
So
day?
actually, that's what I'm saying. We are fixing nothing.
All right.
Because we are fixing nothing. Because if tomorrow, whoever will be elected president will be from the party with the majority in parliament, then we pick a prime minister, again, from the party with the majority in parliament. We are just continuing the status quo as it is today. So the idea, I think, for me, of this BBI nonsense, as I choose to call it, is that they are trying to accommodate a few individuals. But like we said, let's not lose sight of the fact of what is happening today. You know, what is happening today in Kenya? Today in Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta, and I think maybe this is political genius, if you ask me, is that he has brought together, he's already implementing BBI in practice. And I think I'd rather we leave it.
BBI for him is actually to regularize the stuff he's already been doing.
Yeah, but you see, to whose advantage? Remember, in making any law in the land, you have to establish what is the common good for society. Now, you ask the question, whose constitution is this?
Yeah. Who owns actually a country's
It ought
constitution?
to be a people's constitution, Kenyan's constitution. Right from Article 1, right from the preamble, we say, we the people, we give this constitution unto ourselves and to future generation, after recognizing many things, societals, rifts, all those things, need for development, blah, 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 as the preamble says. Then we go to Article 1 now, where we affirm that sovereign authority
Rests with the people.
rests with the people, vests with the people, that they can exercise it directly or indirectly through their elected representative. Meaning, when the people cannot exercise this power as a people, as a body, say cooperative you like, or whatever, as a body, then they can donate this power to Maliba or to Bitok, exercise it in our favor. And it means whatever it is that you're doing as a leader, as the donee of that power, then you are actually doing it on behalf. It's like you're being given a power of attorney with limited powers. You cannot do certain things without me giving you the okay. So it is the people's constitution. And therefore, when you seek to amend the constitution, that's why we were not stupid at the committee of experts when we created provisions on how you amend the constitution of Kenya, from Article 255 on what aspects of the constitution you can amend, either through parliamentary initiative, meaning a member of parliament can actually generate a bill to amend an aspect of the constitution that does not need to go to a referendum. It is concluded in parliament. But even when they legislate, they ought to know that the power has been donated to me from the people to amend this constitution. Secondly, is Article 256. That's now the parliamentary initiative, as I've explained. Then there is the fundamental one, which is people's initiative, popular initiative, and Article 257. And this is what we at Thirdway Alliance Kenya followed when we wanted to amend the constitution. We formulated what we call general propositions. Then we went to the people and we asked the people, we have too many members of parliament. That was our proposal. We want to reduce these members of parliament to a certain number. Do you agree or do you not agree? The people said, we want this, we want this. We want to increase more money to the counties. We want 35%. We moved from the current language of at least 15% to at least 35%. We wanted the people to have a say because it was going to affect, the constitution. But look at BBI. BBI started on the reverse. It started with the two individuals sitting on a room, the two of them, and said, we have got what is called shared prosperity. You can imagine if the president of Kenya was to be held ransom by all the 47 million Kenyans and said, you and I have shared prosperity. Let's have a handshake. That handshake begets BBI. So how many BBIs will we have in this country? So they did that. Then they forced the country. And remember, when I followed the constitution under Article 257, I never got any state resources to collect signatures, to draft the bill, to go around this country. But two individuals sit, one of them not even elected. One is elected, yes, as president, but one is a stranger in government, in elected politics.
In practice of politics, as it were.
In practice of politics, as it were. But they managed to invoke the public coffers spend your taxes bitok and run their own personal individual project. Now they call BBI. Then later on, they come to sanitize it by a records of 1 week collected 4.5 million signatures. Now the county assemblies are being forced to pass it through bribery means. It is going to cost you, Kenyan taxpayer, 4.5 billion Kenya shillings for this bill to be passed, even though you disagree with it.
Wow. There's something that the Director has mentioned, Maliba, and the issues of constitutional making with a preempted end. And there's something he's mentioned about when they were trying to say that the Senate should be the upper house and the National Assembly should be the lower house. And the people who were fighting at that time, probably they were MPs and they were imagining that they'll come back as MPs. And the people who are making the proposal, the proposition to change the constitution, are also doing with an open hand. They imagine that they'll be the beneficiaries of the constitution. Now, worst case scenario, let's say it's no longer worst case scenario. This thing looks like it's being pushed down our throats. Now, if it passes and the people who are formulating it are not beneficiaries, what happens?
This country, we suffer from short-termism. That in 2010, as they were working on the constitution, at some point it was almost clear that we were going the parliamentary system way. But when it looked like the prime minister then was actually the front runner and there was nothing standing between him and the presidency, when guys went to Naivasha, that's where all hell broke loose and things changed. All of a sudden, a long-term champion for parliamentary system changed his mind. The same thing is happening today. As you speak about parliamentarians asking them to make the Senate a lower house, and the people who ended up in the Senate telling them that it's not important to do that. But one of the reasons why I actually ended up doing law later on in life after I started is that I realized that after getting into policy spaces, when I was elected to the National Youth Council to represent Nairobi at the National Youth Council, I realized that everything else ended up at the legal level. Once you get to the policy stuff, you realize that that's where mischief is played. And I thought, now, as much as I've worked as a journalist for my life, for all the largest bit of my life, but I've practiced politics throughout college and my younger life, then I realized going back to school to do law was for me to become a much better politician, to understand how to do public administration much better in a way where you can actually flip. Chapati has got two sides. Imagine kama chapati ni side moja. There's a reason why mimi spend pizza. Because ni chapati imeiva pande moja. So it's the same thing when you are trying to look at public administration, where you just show up. So law little bit of sharpens you to look at things from
angles.
You actually know how to lead human beings from a just perspective. You can actually decide to become a crook because the people who administer justice know injustice. Same thing. So you realize that the short-term mindset that we have is that at the moment people don't care if MCS, like for yesterday I was told that the Nairobi County Assembly MCS were getting 100,000 shillings. And I know the people I'm talking to are not necessarily you are street guys. So 100,000 shillings is a lot of money. The other day they were saying that not more than 200 Kenyans earn 100,000 shillings. So, that's so much money. That's somebody's a month salary, and that is a middle-class guy by definition. Down here, the majority of human, you will pay 3 people out of it, and KRA will still tax them. So, you look at it is that we love to frame every time we deal with things, very few people have got the long-term goal in it. This country, only 10 tribes form 89% of the population. That's where the biggest problem is. That you're starting with the Kikuyu, and number 10 you are having the Turkanas. Those 10 tribes form 89% of this country. And then the people who make a little bit of political weight are then only 5. The top 5. That is the Kikuyu, Luya, Luo, Kamba, I'm forgetting the other, and the Kalenjin. Essentially, most of these guys are not even one tribe. Like for the Luya is a nation that you are bunched together for political identity, and they had. When Luos came to this country, they came in different waves, about 6 waves. They were fighting amongst themselves, and they couldn't even. Today, out of a lot of persecution over time, they have formed some semblance of homogeneity. They initially weren't. They fought amongst themselves. Just look at. I'm not talking about an ancient history. That's about 100 years ago, less than 100 years ago. And you look at the letters that were being written to London by different chiefs and those other people. They didn't trust each other. They weren't even one people. In Uganda, from the different groups they came from, those groups are separate. They are known differently, even if you call them the Luo, but then the Langi are just still the Langi. The Karamajong are still the same. The Padola still, they are just called Padola, whatever way you want to look at it. But when they came around here, for purposes of forging, or rather fighting against the challenges they were having, specifically from the Kipsigis and the Nandi, they really had to forge one front. And then when the white man came around here, of course, he bunched us together. He didn't care what we spoke, whatever language we spoke and the history that we had. So as we get around, you realize that very few people, whatever he's calling the system people, those people have got a long-term goal. They see tomorrow. Like if there is BBI, and then there is the BBI before BBI, and then there will be BBI after BBI. You know, there is the BBI that all of us don't know.
Which is?
It could be a small thing that somebody else is actually trying to work around. Everything else, BBI is actually a bunch of bribery. Everybody, not just MCAs have been bribed. The masses have been told we are bringing 35%. Never mind that we have never been. If you were to compare the current budget with the percentages as it were, you know, Kenya is anything but a devolved system. And I'll tell you why. In the projected 2021-2022 budget, we are talking about 3.02 trillion as a budget, right? Let's talk about a budget. And then, of course, we don't want to talk about a budget as an instrument of governance. We want to talk about revenue, which is good, of course. And I know probably you guys had a lot of argument during those days between the guys from Treasury, financial consultants who came in. So we don't want to talk about the budget. We will rather talk about the revenue we are raising. But then counties will actually be receiving 326 billion shillings out of 3.02. That is 10.7%. Of course, they'll tell you, of course, audited revenue. And normally, the Auditor General has always been struggling to catch up. We have ensured, and by that it's structurally engineered, that the Auditor General will always be 2-3 years behind schedule. So even as you guys try to talk about the 36%, it is so easy for me to get to the 36% for the financial year 2017-2018. And I'll still argue that is 35%. It's not much. But then realistically, if you are to compare with what we are spending today, it's too much. So what we are spending versus what then is being offered out there, how do you then say that Kenya is actually a devolved system when only 10%? I'm actually giving the projections as given from Treasury on the 2021-2022 budget that we'll actually be getting in. 326 billion versus a budget of 3.02 trillion. So we will go round and round and round. Everybody has been bribed. And we are buying into the nonsense of bribery. Even as we speak about MCAs getting the car grants and everything else, you realize that when I went home, I tried to run in Matungu, the by-election. That's my rural home. And as I tried to speak, they tell, no, you are our son. We love you. You speak very well. You understand what you're saying. But when it comes to BBI, don't make noise. Because BBI is going to get us a new constituency. And I was telling them, in law, you will get the constituency so long as the threshold is there. As in the review, the boundaries review was supposed to happen from last year and this year, whether there was BBI or not. But the people in the village have been told that it is BBI that is bringing the constituency, the new constituency. So this bribery, it's all over. Everyone is talking about young people being told.
So Wakili, that then takes me to the point where you started by saying that the problem in Kenya is the 5 big tribes. I differ. I take my view is that actually the problem in Kenya is not tribes. Because for me, one of the things that I love about our country is the diversity. The 44 tribes in Kenya, the diverse cultures. I think the problem in Kenya is, maybe using again your analogy, is 5 political conmen who are projecting this idea that our tribes must be in government. It's a lie. The collective of tribe can never be in government. It's an individual who can be in government. It's individuals who form government. So I would rephrase by saying that the problem for me is not the tribes. It's not the Luos, not the Luyas, not the Kambas. Actually, I would love to see all these tribes come together. I think the problem in Kenya is a few individuals who have managed over the years, over decades, to con them, to con the entire community, take advantage of their ignorance, like you say in Matungu. When the Matungu, they tell people, no, don't fight BBI because it's bringing us a constitution. It's a lie, because they have never explained to their people, by dint of the constitution, every 12 years, there'll be a review of boundaries and constituencies and administrative boundaries. And in that review, depending on the threshold population size, you will actually get a new constituency. So these people are taking advantage of the ignorance of the majority by not even reading to them what the constitution says. So they are being politically expedient, because today, what is that political expediency? It is BBI. And why? Because all of them are jostling and saying, maybe in the next dispensation, if this thing goes through, I'll probably be a deputy prime minister. I'll probably be one of the nominated.
They're actually already shortlisting. You can see they shortlisted 5 already.
I'm not surprised.
They're already angling.
I'm not surprised. They're already angling. Yeah. But what they have done, instead of developing, and you see one of the fundamental problems we have in Kenya, Akili Arnold, is that the political class has always wanted the majority Kenyans to remain poor and vulnerable. That is their fodder. That's their political fodder. That's what they...
It's by strategy.
It's by strategy. Because the moment you become conscious, the moment you enjoy certain services, for example, at your doorstep, as we were proposing under Punguza Mizigo, that in each and every ward of Kenya, let's use it as a springboard for development. And that way we achieve inclusivity and equality in Kenya. Then it will not matter who even becomes president or what, even if we are a prime minister. And this is exactly what happens in other developed countries or countries that are prospering. When people are able to receive services, and I'm sure the listeners who are listening to me from Berlin, USA, and Australia can relate to this. It does not matter where you remotely live. You have got basic services. Your children can go to school. You have got the health facility. You can actually call for an ambulance. There's a train service. There's a job opportunity. Back home, the political leadership in Kenya for the last 50 years has never wanted Kenyans to be at a certain level where they are able to relate to issues. They whip these tribal emotions. And that's why you can see the narrative is one of our own must go to State House. So pia tukubali tu wakili kwamba hata sisi tuko tuna ujinga fulani kama wa Kenya. Because unasaje kusema tu kwamba ati mmoja wetu akienda bunge hata sisi pia tuko State House. I mean, I don't see Kikuis occupying State House today as we speak. I have not seen Luos fraternize or ride along with the President Uhuru Kenyatta in Air Force One because Raila Odinga has finally joined the government. I don't see that. So I think it's time for Kenyans to wake up. And like we said before, we talk in this show, some of us who are now conscious of this conmanship, political conmanship, must actually come together and speak for the majority of Kenyans. Because I'm actually beginning to question our so-called education. Are we really educated as a people? Or we just attended schools, sat in in a high institution of learning? How come our education is not influencing even thought process, even decision making in favor of society? So we really need to come out. I mean, because what I think Wakili is lacking, and I'm actually happy that you actively participate in politics and you still want to participate in it, is that we have left the gap for far too long to be occupied by a tiny minority.
And that minority does it in our name.
Exactly. And you know why they do it? They do it because us guys in the know have shunned from politics. I've shunned even from saying, no, wait a minute. Stop lying to the people of Matungu. Ati BBI ndio tawaletea constituency mpya. Katiba inasema baada ya muda fulani IEBC itakuja itafanya nini? It's review of boundaries, itawapatia.
And maybe we need to tell them that IEBC actually stands for Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission.
Wakili, the challenge is actually not that the people in the know have abdicated or rather literally have not come in. It's the practice, it's the mismatch between the practice in theory. that we go out there, we know and we could teach people how to get to power, how politics should be done, and how government should be run. But when it comes to access of power, that practice is when it becomes very difficult. Ideally, we will go and tell everyone else that politics is only about 3 Ps. You're talking about that you, as a person, you only need publicity. Largely, the practice of it is that you need publicity, you need presence, and you need positioning. Now, we will get the publicity very right. We are here, we are talking to people. We will get, now the problem comes in positioning. That is why vultures, people who are less qualified, people we know they've got a checkered history, the goons we know. Like today, if I went to my village, the people who are angling to become MCAs are common thugs. People we know, they've been in the cells for so many times. You're speaking about, you spoke about oligarchs being able to explain where they got their money. Wealth in Kenya is so much like, you know, this world, the dark world, where the money from the occult world, money from nothing concept. We are here with him. Tomorrow he owns KICC. And there is no way you explain about it. You know, the concept of money from nothing, it literally runs our politics. That people who have no place they have ever worked, they have never run a shop, they have never manufactured anything, those are the people who are controlling capital, and they are very liquid. And we get around that and no one wants to explain anything. So I think the practice of politics is where we, the people who know what should be done, is a problem. And that, like they say, I hear people trying to slogan and say the problem is the middle class. Statistically, for quite a very long time, we've not had a true middle class. It's a missing middle in our resource allocation.
I just call them the working class.
So the working class bit of it, and there are very few, because out of 19.5 million people in this country who should be, who are within the age, the working, the workforce, only 4.5 are active taxpayers. So where are these other 15 million
You know,
people?
Akil, why I think that for me, I choose to take a different perspective.
Yeah.
That why we, people who are in the know, must even come out and explain these laws to our people. Because we underestimate one thing. We are very influential. Think about, for example, the support network. I mean, the people you support even up to the village level. How come they can rely on you economically for their own survival? You pay school fees,
But not for
you pay
food.
health, you pay you I mean they pay for food for them, and yet when it comes to political decisions, they cannot rely on you.
They go elsewhere.
So they go elsewhere. They are lied to. So I think it is us who have let the general public, the ignorant masses, to be manipulated by conmen and expedient politicians. And I think my proposal is this. We need to hit the ground running and say, listen, going forward, I'm not going to allow people in my village or in my ward to be lied to by this conniving political class. I'm going to explain to them. And I'm going to start with my own family. And I'll tell them, listen, this is the position. Even if it means now holding them at ransom and saying, no, you cannot be calling me for support. Sijui mtu amegonjeka, situmie sijui transport, pesa ya hospitali. And now when I'm coming, telling you to take the right decision, you cannot listen to me.
Wakili,
All right, quickly moving forward.
Wakili, why I actually insist is the practice that is the problem. Because we know these things. We know the truth. We know what should be done. I'll give you an example. My foundation has got access to a few friends in the West who give us scholarships. I've been giving out the scholarships to young people in my constituency and across the Western Kenya region, because that was our area of focus. And I realized one thing, that somebody, you know, voters can actually be strange. Somebody who is actively, at the time when I had presented my candidature, and then I withdrew, somebody is actively campaigning for somebody else, but he is busy in my inbox. Publicly, he's campaigning for somebody else, but in my inbox, he's busy lobbying for a scholarship for a relative. And I will ask them, why is it that I have been doing this thing for quite a while? You come here and ask for this, but when it comes to voting, then you remind me about clans, about people who are giving them these things. And as in, there has never been a shot over people who know what to be done going out and presenting themselves. It is in the practice of it. And then the other bit of it then takes me to poverty as a serious factor. You know, I still believe that BBI should essentially be about Article 43. Because largely the way I characterize it is that the first liberation for us was to do away with the white man domineering over us and taking away our resources. The second liberation is what then you people finally tied down. It is a process that started immediately after independence, because people realized that independence alone was not enough. So then we had to look for good governance. Whatever way you want to fracture that, is that you tied it up, you guys tied it up in the Constitution 2010. But beyond now being free from colonialism, now having instruments of good governance and tying up to ensure that we live a life that is decent, then now the quality of life, Article 43 then coming in, the socio-economic element of it, that it doesn't matter if I live in a free country with a good and progressive constitution, it must then reflect in the quality of life I live. So if, for me, BBI process centered around ensuring that Article 43 becomes life, because for me that is the third, and from what I see, the final liberation that is left of our people, then our people will be able to make good decisions. However much you want to tell somebody that they have to do these things right, these people and the voters, I know when we talk about Ujinga by the permeates beyond the people who have gone to school and those who have not gone. And like in my argument,
a common denominator.
Because when we do strategies for guys and you're working out, you realize that some of these vote blocks that we actually talk about don't exist. Like, for example, the youth as a voting block does not exist. It exists in all things except when it comes to politics. Other identities then do what? Then precede the youth identity. For the simple reason that the youth, they will be online very eloquently talking about their problems, but when it comes to voting, they then vote like their mothers and grandmothers in the village. Not any different. You will never know if those guys are the people who will talk about their issues. They will talk about policy issues as they were. So it is the practice that is little bit of beating us. We do not know how to organize better, or we have mainstreamed bad manners to the level that you can still campaign for somebody else and you're asking me to give you a public good, right? You expect me to go out and work hard, but when I present myself, even though I have demonstrated that I can bring what you want, you still do not trust me, or rather you do not think that I will be the best person. So you are bringing in a crook because he's giving you 200 shillings. So for the third and final liberation, I think we must move away from just knowing these things and know how to capture power to a level where, because these guys will keep on going around, and since their capture of state has to be aided by votes, even if it's by
they'll always have to find a way.
As in not really by finding a way. The thing is that we are not afraid of voting or democracy as Africans, including dictators. They know how to do the elections. They will do it very well. It is we, the people who know and have seen the sun, who need to find ways of ensuring that if the door is closed, however hot the sun is, you might not see it.
All right. Okay. Allow me to read some few comments and we transition. I'm saying Netman says the thing that is bedeviling the society is that the political elite has brainwashed the people with undoubts and interference of their mindset. Yet the spirit of Zionism and our person crops in. The end result is hatred among the have and the have not. Some also doubt our education system. We need to liberation of our mind. I'm seeing EKURU says, I asked you why you never supported Punguza Mzigo and you went silent. Don't be convenient, all right? Then I see Mbuya said the best elections we ever had in Kenya was the 2002 and 2007. Despite the PEV, they were based on issues and liberation, all right? Sakon Kiblaka says our education system was meant to suppress critical thinking and cuddle half-baked leaders with hyped-up diplomas and degrees that are as important as willfully vasectomized man thinking he is unrivaled village bull. The taste of anything must be judged by the fruits it provides. Wow, quite interesting. All right. Lucy Mite says, and so what is the end game? What should be done? Communities have given up. My county MCA is an elder, a 70-year-old man who was elected by majority youth. Whilst I see him being re-elected in 2022, I think poverty of accepting new ideas, new leadership is the problem. All right, quite interesting. Joel Arama, Chairman Diaspora, says, I agree with EKURU, quote on influence. Osea Arisi says, in Kenya, the rich has always made sure that the poor aid the middle class. They don't want the poor to move the middle class because they will wake up. They give handouts which the middle class don't give. Thus, the poor who are the majority will sing their name and aid the middle class. The poor are the majority will vote in these vultures. The poor don't watch TVs or Facebook. It's the middle class who do, and they don't have space to talk to the poor because the poor aid middle class, and it is what the rich love. Wow, interesting. That's quite a very interesting analysis. Ombuyi from Diaspora says the problem in Kenya is tribalism, which has prevented even the knowledgeable ones from separating issues and tribalism. Wow. Joel Arama says the education system is not set to mold thinkers. I'm also seeing Kiprop all the way from Sagong, and some Sheikhs from Germany says that's very true, Dr. Aukot. All right, guys, there's something on Rodas. What you're going to say is in a burial somewhere, Kenyans were told that it's the turn of other tribes to be in power, apart from the non-two, and the crowd present was excited. Wow. Interestingly, a guy born and brought up in power and currently exercises power confirms to the public that even his home country is too poor that Wananchi must support BBI to live better lives. What have they been doing all those years? This is a clear indication that communities don't benefit when one of their own is in power. Instead, it's only them and family. They only run to communities as a cover in trouble. All right. Adija Palmer says, do these two lawyers in studio take up pro bono cases? Do you take up pro bono cases? All right.
You do? I do.
You do take. Okay. Dr. Ari says he takes up pro bono. Do you, Maliba?
I do.
Do you take up pro bono cases? Okay. Both of these guys take up pro bono cases. If you have a case, you can inbox me, then we see if it qualifies. Because not all cases qualify for pro bono, I guess. So you tell us how the case looks like.
But you can also suggest to them where they can also visit. They can probably go to Kituo cha Sheria. There are many non-governmental organizations that actually offer legal services. And they have got a network of lawyers who take pro bono cases. This is part of our contribution. If you like some sort of corporate social responsibility in the social justice field.
All right. Yeah. Sasa umesikia. Julius Silva says I would go for Punguza Mzigo and like this free Kenya and Tunza Katiba. What do you guys need to come on board? We support Punguza Mzigo and counter the conmanship in BBI, which is being forced down our throats by all means. All right, guys, let us transition a bit. The issues of government institutions. Yesterday, Halaka Wako, who is the head of ESCC, was linked to 347 million scandal at KEMSA. These are guys supposed to be fighting.
Halaka Wako, the former CEO.
Yes. Yes, has been linked to a scandal at KEMSA. So we are all a community of thieves, or what happens?
Like we said in the last show, if I recall, I don't know whether it was last Friday or the other Friday, that it's about time we have a conference of thieves in this country. You see, in Kenya,
we have a conference of thieves.
Yeah. In Kenya today, what we are calling corruption
is theft.
It's actually theft of public money. And anybody being appointed, because of the system, the way the system is been stage managed, is that you elect people into these public offices with a view to enriching yourself and themselves. And because theft is happening at the very end, at the very top, or it implicates the very top, there is no one to moralize the other in Kenya, especially below. So really today, sometimes I've said myself, you cannot arrest me for, giving a cop 1,000 Kenya shillings or even 50 bob. That's money from my pocket. Why should is that corruption really? If I decide to tell a cop, no, umesimama kwa jua sana muda mrefu, please kunywa soda, I may not be bribing that cop. After all, it's money from me. Corruption ought to relate to, of course, there's also the social aspect of it, how do we behave in society, questions of honesty. But the truth for the matter is, the institutions of government today are avenues for siphoning public money. And that's why you can see the fight, the scramble for this position, even to the fact that, we don't have one of our own, our tribe has been sidelined, one of our own has not been appointed, is for purposes of eating, period. If we put one of our own there, the idea is not service to the people of Kenya. Because you can imagine that tragedy, and I know Alake Wako very well as a friend. It's unfortunate that as the watchdog corruption, before he retired, now he's being linked to the KEMSA. Because what these government institutions do, they actually trade with each other. I've got a tender here, I give it to you. Maliba, you had certain institution,
we exchange.
We exchange, and that's exactly how governance.
But it's the same thing. You actually find that if I am in the military, you realize that my relatives are in the police, and the police, the relatives are in the military. Just check out and you'll see. Some families realize like it flows.
It's an exchange program.
Yeah.
This idea, scratch my back, I scratch yours. What are your comments on something, Arnold?
The one thing I know is that, of course, human beings naturally are selfish. We are born. That is one of the reasons why we even became social beings. That we realize that as very selfish creatures, if we do not partner with each other, then the bigger picture will be lost to us. So we secure our interests by partnering with other people. In this country now, bringing it much closer here is that you realize that literally every Kenyan today, we have been socialized. After, the Brits brought us corruption.
Uh-huh.
That is why, in your mother tongue, what is the word for corruption?
Wheezy.
There isn't.
No, corruption is no.
There is no word for it.
Chorindet, when you say chorindet in Kalenjin, ni mwizi. Actually, you can relate to it.
Yeah. So,
in fact, when you say now, okay, pesa imebiwa serikali, kwa George Kondo.
Yes.
And imebiwa, there's no
other word.
There's no sexy term for
there is no word for it. So, it is something that didn't exist here. So, when the British came in with their bad manners, we mainstreamed it. It became a culture. And we are socialized in a way that even if we are not corrupt, one time too many, we are very corruptible. As in, it is just a step away. Opportunity is the only thing that is missing in that particular triangle as you try to fix the three factors that will make anyone, make corruption possible. So, being corruptible does not necessarily mean that you are corrupt, but it means that there is a factor that is missing, and most times it's actually the opportunity, as in you have got the potential.
Arnold, before we also mislead Kenyans, we have also said earlier on that we are the people in the know.
Yeah.
Let's also not mislead Kenyans. I agree. The the colonialists brought a system of governance that was corrupt in its very nature.
Yeah.
But in 1963, they handed us the reins of power. We've been independent for the last 57, now going to 58 years.
So they are mentees.
No, well, it doesn't matter. But I think for me, I try to run away from this excuse that because of colonialism is why we are in Kenya today. We have some of our own who have had this leadership.
And they perfected the art.
Maybe one could be a mentee of the former colonialists. But what about the entire government? What about the devolution of governance, for example? All the 47, okay, what about the 47 governors today in Kenya since 2013? Again, let's not have this excuse that because of foreign influence, like we said, since this is Sharia Wiki, and we like to put it into perspective, law emanates from within the framework of society, as you know.
Yes.
From our study of the social foundations of law. If law emanates from within the framework of society, it is our society. It is not British people or foreigners who legislate for these laws for us in parliament. It is our own people, our own representatives that we elect. So I think, whereas yes, we may have inherited some of the, in fact, if we were to inherit some of the structures, for example, the infrastructures created by the colonialists, Kenya will be a developed country by now. We will not need SGR borrowing from China. Because if you look at the railway, for example, the British came here, colonialists came here with a view to actually settling because they found very beautiful land, the White Islands, they call them, nice weather from Mombasa all the way to Western Kenya to Northern Kenya, okay? They wanted to stay, and they actually established an infrastructure that actually make their lives better in terms of, for example, transportation, the movement of goods and services and people. But what did we do? A black colonialist, and I think I gave you a book called The Africans by David Lamb.
No, you're not. You have to give me.
Yeah. So in David Lamb, The Africans, he says, in fact, if you look at the first page, he says that, Africans, let me just paraphrase, that black people deluded themselves by thinking that they chased away white colonialists, only to replace them by black entrepreneurs who only care about accumulation of wealth. So imagine today, let's even consider SGR. A standard gauge railway, where we borrowed over 350 plus billion from the Chinese. I don't know the exact figure, but it's in billions.
It's going to have 1 trillion now if you compound everything.
Exactly, if you compound. So, Bitok, look at the Kenya Railway. The biggest landowner in Kenya was the Kenya Railway. The difference between the SGR and the meter gauge railway is just width. It's with.
Really?
Yes. And then, of course, the new carriages and all that.
The painting.
Not the painting.
They say that is a praying mantis.
Okay, so it
was repainted.
just modernized. So if you truly wanted even to make Kenyans live a better life, we'll have just expanded the width of the MTR, the meter gauge rail, MGR. Then it becomes SGR. Then we did not need to borrow the almost trillion Arnold is talking about, and start buying new land, including even violating, can I even use the word, raping our national park, the only national park in the entire world in a city, because of interests. So I will say we need to start blaming ourselves.
One of the reasons I actually was trying to position it, that our generation is only 25 years.
Yes.
These guys were around here for about 70 years. Properly, the white man was around here for slightly over 70 years. So we carried over what was good. Amongst our people, we had what was good. That's why I was asking you what is the word for corruption in Kalenjin, for example. It doesn't. In my language, the Luya, we have no word for corruption. The closest word is just pure theft. Yeah. You have stolen from me. There is no other way.
Omwivi.
Well, Omwivi. So whatever way you try to look at it, there's no. So we moved on that culture.
Yeah.
We have mainstreamed it, and we have taken it as our own. So we are at a place where everyone, including the education system we are talking about, is that it's bringing up people who want to make it. And there's no justification to how you make it. There's no beauty in explaining this is how I worked. I woke up in the morning, I read very hard, I passed my exams and then got this job. Or I wake up every morning and do this. So stealing is almost inculcated across society. Because like he said, leaders, democracy is so much like milk. That the best substance in milk, because you guys come from where there's a lot of cows, the best substance in milk is normally the cream. It comes on top. However much you can actually do the milking, but then the best substance in milk comes on top. So our leaders are a representative sample of who we are, largely. Have you realized that even if Parliament has got a changeover rate of about 60% every time we do elections,
70% every,
yet wherever those guys come in, they behave exactly like the other people we removed. So is it the people we are bringing in? Is it the process that brings them in? Or the problem is the source? Because I have always insisted that when you're doing in organization development, when we're talking about standardization, it means that even if I left office, any other person who comes in should be able to carry on with work, and if it's a product we actually are producing, should actually be of the same level once you put systems in place. So for me, I still insist that the problem is with the source. Because if the practice of making porridge means that you're putting flour, water, and then heat until it's actually porridge, if you're going to use sand, it will not be porridge. Somehow, every time we go to an election, it means we are doing the same thing. So is Parliament haunted? Does it have a demon that strikes people immediately they get there? You might not remember, but from 2002, every first demonstration after every election has been about people trying to stop parliamentarians from adding their salaries. The first thing MPs have done since 2002, just check, you'll realize that the first demonstration, major demonstrations in Nairobi after elections, have been members of the civil society trying to stop parliamentarians to increase their salaries. Yet, every election, there is an attrition of about 60 to 70% of them. Yet these guys come in, even younger ones, progressive, and immediately they come in, they are doing the same thing. Probably we need to start querying. That's why you are speaking about how the people who should be watching over us have actually turned out and now they are skinning us. In this country, for you guys who come from the herding society in background, you know that sometimes, of course, you didn't used to do sharing. If you skin your animal, it means it's dead. You can have meat, you can have once off. But if you're going to milk, let's use the white people do the sharing, but let's talk about milking. You can actually take care of your children because they do milk for quite a long time. But if you slaughter and you skin it, means we are done with that. It's over in a week. Everything is done.
We also had plenty, so we could kill some of them.
we could skin as we wish.
So the point is that we might really need to take a bit of time. It's something that we'll really have to work on seriously. First of all, as individuals. Because People steal, and it's so normal. Nowadays,
But-
if
but-
you
but-
steal
but-
a million,
Yeah.
people think you are a joker because now we have normalized
Now we are stealing
billions.
billions,
Now, if you,
How
you,
can
you
you steal
stole.
them?
When I was at the National Youth Council and I was representing Nairobi, I ended up as the national spokesperson. Every time I met people, including young people, they will tell you now that uko kwa National Youth Council, you are at a very influential place and now you're the national spokesperson. Usitoke kama hujatengeneza pesa. These are people advising leaders and people in places of influence. Usitoke bila kufanya nini? Bila kutengeneza. So how do you do it? People come up with ways.
But you know why, Wakili?
Yeah.
You know why that is the narrative? Because the country has also lacked leadership. You see, for any country in the world to prosper, you need a certain level of stewardship to steer a country or society to a certain direction. The reason the people are telling the leaders to do that, because the leaders have themselves shown in their leadership quest that for me to be able even to talk to you, I need to bribe,
To incentivize.
to incentivize. So if leaders today stopped incentivizing, giving handout, and then and refusing across the board, fine. Even if you're not elected, at least you will be standing certain moral values, certain principles in society. But let me come to the question of theft. You see, our laws are very clear. If you are a person in charge of an institution and certain resources, and these people are not many, we know them. So sometimes I try to run away from the idea that we are all thieves. Yeah? As a people, the culture is
Potentially.
there. Potentially.
Yeah.
The culture is there, or we are all thieves without opportunities, as people say. The culture is there, but the leadership, in my view, is failing. The reason people get into power, into this position of influence and start making money, accumulating wealth, is because of that culture. They get away with it. So, back to the question, the fundamental. How then do we, and I think not the how, we now must speak to the masses, speak even to this leadership, and say we need to change our mindset. And I think for me, change is not easy. It is gradual, especially in a society where there are certain bad mannerisms that have been institutionalized over a period of time. Been entrenched. So I think we need to, yes, as we complain, as we point out this problem, but let's also keep on saying, one of the solutions, in my view, going forward is to confront these narratives and say, no, this is bad manners. No, we cannot continue with this. You need to change this. And I think that way we begin to actually help our people understand. And I am an optimist. I know this is the real politic. I know, for example, that people are being lied to about this BBI, that it will bring certain goodies. I know there's a lot of sweeteners in this BBI, but I think I will never accept it because that appears to be the norm. I will never say, oh, this thing will pass anyway. I don't know. I'll wait for that time to come. You see, that's defeatism. That's accepting. Let's accept this lie. For me, I'll still maintain the fact that BBI remains unconstitutional. It's a lie. It is actually a big burden for this country. And for me, going forward, I am committed. Whether BBI passes tomorrow or not, or whether it passes or not, I will still continue the idea of Punguza Mizigo until we undo BBI. We will undo it.
Actually, I met learned people who told me.
Yeah.
Quite learned young people, colleagues, were telling me, BBI is bad. We will, since we have no power to do anything, we will just have to pass it, and immediately the new government comes in, we will start and doing it. And I'm telling them, who told you that the people who are passing it are doing it for sport? Don't you think they have got a post-BBI agenda also?
Okay, now there are two things that played also this weekend when it comes to PBI and the county assemblies. There are two things that played up. One scenario is a situation where the county assembly of Baringo shut down the BBI report, as in a very chaotic session that happened. And then also what happened, especially yesterday, we saw very major houses, county assembly houses, passing the BBI report with invigilators. I saw Babu in the national in the county assembly of Nairobi, Maina Commander. In Laikipia, I saw what was the name of this guy, the Mungiki leader, Maina Njenga, who was in another MPs. Now, ESCC has gone for Baringo MCS. And the question has been, are government institutions that are supposed to be independent being weaponized against alternative thoughts or against those people who are seen to be opposing the ideas of government?
BBI was weaponized from the very beginning. We weaponized BBI, Actually, before we get into all these things, we live in a country where the economy and the state works and functions for a select few. Everything is actually made to work for a few. If you become the president, the country, the economy, the state, and all its instruments serves you. You are not serving the country, you are not serving the economy. That's where the biggest problem is, that even as you speak about the guys, and I initially said that the people, a number of people who are opposed to BBI, are opposed to it just in solidarity with other people who might also be opposed to it. I'm talking about the political creatures. You know, these political creatures who are opposed to it. Like I know one said in confidence to a friend of mine, that, you know, the problem with BBI is it's diluting power. So that when we take over, we will actually take over Shell with a lot of resources having gone down, a degree of resources having gone down, and sharing this power with a lot of people unnecessarily, when you can actually experience it, you can actually do it alone.
It's real form.
Yeah, so I am not even surprised that EACC then wrote to the MCAs in Baringo.
To say what?
That they behaved badly. There's a letter to that effect. It's been around there.
So what are they investigating in the context of corruption? Because EACC,
it's not about corruption. It's for me. It's not about.
They're actually behaving like NCAC.
It's not even for anything wrong they have done. But like I like to say, it's an attempt to show you a weapon. You know, somebody just, you know how the thieves in Nairobi will do. Anakuonyesha bunduki hapa kwingine, atakwambia nipatie kibeti, unapeana tu, because you know deep down. So we've weaponized these institutions to a level that today, if you said a few things, a friend of mine keeps on telling me that wewe unaongea mbaya juu ya BBI because hauna corruption. Because ungekuwa nayo, no one who has got a problem with the state, or you are not clean the way you do your business, has the audacity to speak against BBI. Because immediately you do, a file is pulled from somewhere, and even if it doesn't exist. And that is why I have argued before that CDF was a good thing at a time when we were just coming from a state where resources were controlled and they were dished out on how you behaved. But BBI has actually brought down the quality of parliament. Because somehow, these guys have forgotten to be the people's watchmen.
Do you even have a qualitative government in the past?
So parliament is parliament as it were. Already, not just that CDF offense and of course the principle of separation of powers, but somehow always you cannot audit yourself. Every time you spend the money you didn't plan to spend, you can always explain to yourself and you'll be very comfortable. That is how, when Parliament should essentially be taking care of, see how they take care of the Auditor General. You know, the Auditor General practically, and when you guys were designing the Constitution, should be an appendage of Parliament because he helps them take care of oversight and stuff. But they have treated the office of the Auditor General like some distant thing, in fact, a nuisance. So, we need to get away MPs meddling in stuff that should essentially be the business of the executive. So any particular time. Now, they are silent because every time MPs try to speak up, you remember that you bought sugar using your CDF and everything else, and something will come up. So, from wherever we are, BBI, I know Wakil says that we should not be defeatist in nature. But if you have lived in this country long enough, then once we start accepting reality, then we can plan against it. Because I have realized one thing, that all the counties that are passing it, are they reading it? Is the threshold of public participation even something as much as the... I don't know what we are calling public participation in the BBI setup, because if your opinion does not inform the form and the shape of whatever you are discussing, is it civic education? Because whatever people will say in the first place, even if they were to say anything, it will not change anything around there. Two, the people who are doing it, like, I want to ask, how did CIA, for example, pass that thing within a week? Was that threshold sufficient?
No, I mean...
So everyone who is either supporting or opposing, especially the county
the law, for example, requires that... you remember, there's double standards here. When, for example, the Punguza Mizigo Bill 2019 was before the 47 county assemblies, each county assembly claimed they needed to conduct public participation in accordance with Article 10 of the Constitution. Because it's a principle of governance. It's a national value that you must involve the people. Let the people know exactly what we are about to pass. And what the MCAs have done, since we're talking about Sharia Wiki, what the MCAs have done, they have actually abdicated their responsibility of representation. Because each of those MCAs ought to have gone to their wards and say, listen, there is a legislation, there is a proposed bill before the county assembly. And this is what the bill says. But the tragedy of representation in Kenya is, one, elected representatives do not understand what representation is all about. Number two, they don't even understand the laws via which they became representatives. They don't understand the process of legislative making, as in this particular case. So, and the constitution is very clear. You need to go to the people and inform them, this is what is on the table. What are your views? So, the way BBI bill is being passed is unconstitutional to begin with. And that's why I've maintained from the word go. The foundation of it was unconstitutional. The manner in which it was sent to IBC was unconstitutional. The manner in which it's being passed right now is unconstitutional. I mean, so I'm actually, I'm one person who's going to go to bed, even if this Jubilee Raila Uhuru bill, Jubinasa bill goes through, me, I'll sleep very soundly because my conscience is very clear. I said from the very beginning, BBI is unconstitutional. It is manifesting itself in the way it's being passed today. And you know what? I'm actually having the last laugh.
But we have throughout, if you were to look at how we have run states since 2013, initially when this dynamic duo, before they became mortal enemies.
Before they lost the dynamism.
Yeah. When they started off, of course, the constitution was tying their hands. And the maxim has always been that we should have a constitution that has got sufficient ropes to tie even the worst amongst ourselves if by bad luck they rise to power. But now we are at a place where these two guys moved in, they started abusing and edging away, just chipping away the powers around the constitution. So we are at a place where constitutionalism, the rule of law, is actually an opinion to these guys. So even if you are surprised at how these guys are actually getting around BBI, you probably have not followed their journey coming all this way. All through, today we live in a country where court orders mean nothing. If court orders, orders mean nothing.
Akili, those for me are settled issues. I'm not even bothered about the conduct of Uhuru Kenyatta or Akina Raila and the rest. For me, they are settled. I already know the kind of character they are. I mean, and I've had the opportunity to work with them, especially during the constitution-making process. And I know that they don't actually mean well for this country. It's about their own personal interests. I think for me, what I'm interested in now going forward, we, the people, for example, I keep on saying, we people in the know now really need to stick out our neck and say, no, BBI remains nonsense, remains unconstitutional, and we explain to the people. We need to confront them because the failure to confront them gives them the justification that only them have a monopoly of knowledge where this country must go. And we all know that's wrong. We all know that's wrong. And I don't mean to demean...
It's not just wrong. It is also not true that they have got a monopoly on the strategic thrust of where we are going as a country. They don't. They have actually led us into potholes. Take us off-road before.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
All right. Allow me to read a few comments again, then we go to our two last topics. Mwaniki asked, what is the solution for bad manners in Kenya? Religion, education, or culture? Actually, they have actually constitutionalized bad manners in BBI. They have actually said, the BBI is saying we legislate against bad manners. You also need to be proud of your black skin, so forth and so forth.
But is that a problem?
If you're not white, then I don't know what to
Are we really not proud of our black skin? Yeah.
Ole Netman says we need a new
windfall. When I tried to read BBI report, immediately I think I just threw it away.
Ole Netman says we need a new individual windfall. It's only God's intervention. Hey, at times God does not intervene in stupidity. Na wacha tu muendelee na ujinga yenu. Haya, Victor Kip says Gerald Bitoki USA 350 million, Kenya 47 million. Adopt same system. Assume we have 3K plus MCAs. US 441 representatives. 3,000 against 441. Interesting. 47 senators, US 100 senators. As 47 senators in the US, and as we have 100 senators. 47 governors in the US, 50. 47 governors in Kenya, and 50 in the US. Now with changes in BBI, don't even want to go there. Let me just say tafakari. Tutafakari. Naona Julius Silva says mainstream media can't stand these truths. They are cowards. They fear for their lives. They can be switched off. Let's share these clips when we get them. Let the public learn and the truth. Thank you so much, Julius Silva, for that. Really appreciate. Abbas Juguna says theft and purported development in Kenya are conjoined twins. The cost of those projects are astonishing. Wow. Julius Silva says 4.5 billion for bribing MCAs has to be raised, and you hear some people saying BBI is a good thing. We are doomed. We're also waiting for a turn as wananchi tujue tutapewa nini. Chumchum Bena says we are led by tribalists. Pauline Chero says ask the experts, these taxes being increased now and then, can't we not block constitutionally like the exorbitant fuel increases?
So we talk all that thought there before you proceed. And I think it's important we tell Kenyans is the 4.5 billion Kenya shillings, you're already beginning to pay for it through increased fuel. That's a fact.
Wow.
You know, it's correlated. The tax, look at today, you work, you're employed. Your employer pays you a salary, say 30,000 after taxation. It is deposited into your account. For you to send the already taxed money, say to your mother in the village through M-Pesa, another taxation. For you to buy airtime, another taxation.
Sure.
For you to pay your electricity.
For your mother to withdraw the money.
For your yes,
she will be taxed.
Taxed.
So everything she will buy.
We are actually taxed, I think, close to about 70%. Actually, we are slaves in a plantation called Kenya.
It's not actually even double taxation, the way we try to actually put it formally. We are more than double taxed. As in, you are taxed from every end, yet the people who pay mainstream taxes are only 4.5 million people. But those, again, instead of widening the tax net, we have got very, I don't know whether to say thin-brained leaders, because people are afraid, for example, to tax what we are calling the informal sector. Like I've told you, and these are the numbers by government itself, that out of a workforce of 19.5 million, the active taxpayers in KRA's books is 4.5. So we have got 15 million people who, quote unquote, you cannot, if you do not come up with this clever way of taxing them on everything else, you are not able to tax them. But it is for a simple reason that the quality of leaders we have, they have told this 15 million that you guys are informal sector, therefore we should not tax you. And I'll give you an example. I grew up around Mathare and Huruma. Some of the people with serious money live down there. But if you are going to get 100,000 shillings, KRA will actually come on your neck, and especially if it's secondary income, they take 30% before talking about any other thing. So we have moved away. We've got very weak leadership that, for example, cannot mainstream and widen the tax net for populism's sake. That especially in Nairobi, you will be told, hawa ni watu wa chini na hawa watu wengine. Some of those people do very well than we who put on coats and ties and go to the office. They are doing quite well, but because of populist politics, we have for years refused to mainstream that sector, and therefore a few people are carrying the burden. How do you explain that pay as you earn is the biggest source of our revenue? Yet the officials, when you talk about the formal sector, is only about 3 million people. So these people are burdened, yet everybody else is using the public goods that you and I pay for. But because of the kind of politics we do, no one really wants to actually link the two. Because in Nairobi, you're going to get MCAs and MPs who, for anything else, they will fight for, quote unquote, the hawkers in town. And you know, a good hawker in town can easily go home with 3,000 shillings to 5,000 shillings per day.
Yeah.
And a number of these people in the offices, if they are very lucky, whatever they have worked for, is about 2,000 shillings per day. That is in a very good office.
Or nothing and wait for the salary.
Or much less. I'm talking about if you are to compute their salaries. At the end of the day, if you are to divide it for the day's work, you will realize that the other person gets much more, is taxed lesser. You work in, you put in a lot of work, but you look formal, but you are taxed more. So that is one, as in the quality of the leadership we have. If you talk about bad manners, if you talk about the challenges we are having, it's because all of us are trying to find ways, very few people, and I think when you speak about the middle class and the working class, not necessarily being people who are politically woke. They are working on very many fronts, except politics. And I'll tell you, because I have worked with young people for years, young people can articulate youth issues and the problems of this country very well until it comes to voting. And they vote like that.
When they appoint
some of them actually call home as elections get there. Uko mnapigia nani? Ninarudi nyumbani na sijui mnapigia nani. Now this is the light of the family.
Okay, go on with your
Julius Fever says, if you friends remember, in 2017, NASA told us, those who supported the failing Jubilee, that Dereva ni Mulevi, Makanga ni Mwizi. Now the man who told us that is on the dining table and is applying table manners. You don't speak while eating. We are in trouble as a country. Wow. And now the brother is saying we have the system. All right, Ombuimbo says, the only sure bet to beat corruption is to jail those who have acquired from public offers, regardless of their social status. We have witnessed recently politicians being jailed and later released. Capture and release method. Capture and release. Nick Kamau says, not yet Uhuru. Kenya is a family business. Yeah. Abbas, you're going to say some names are synonymous with biggest scandals in Kenya, and the live TV inquiry drama are all the same. No one is always brought to the book, despite glaring evidence and final reports would end up being gathering dust in the government. And I think it's time we use these inquiries actually as reality TV. I think in Kenya we can come up with very nice reality TV from the parliament, because they go there, they tell us all these things, how they catwalked into Kemsa, got money, how someone was passing and was, I mean, it's real
hanging
reality.
Around.
Yes, real reality TV.
Like manna from heaven.
Reality TV, Baba. We can make some serious movie in this country. Presley says we are not corrupt, but very corruptible. He was laughing at what Nani was saying. Vic keeps saying, Gerald Kuru, can they teach Kenya celebrating about BBI? They will finance all those positions of MPs with their own money. They should expect taxes to go up. Kenya is barely surviving from either debts. And we're actually talking about this when IMF is clamping us down. We are actually saying it's good for us when we are even being taxed to pay the MCAs. I mean, when I agree, and at times I agree with you, Kuru, when you say the public is the biggest scam. They are the greatest conmen.
Yes.
You know, they are the ones who are complaining, and again, when they go back, they go and sing the same stories. The things. Olena says the conference of thieves is in the offing. We are all thieves, but lacking the opportunity to steal. We elect one knowing they are lesser thieves, but they outshine the one who are there. But we still have some remnants. Esther Mudhoni Ndirangu says punda amechoka bana. Haya basi, ndio maana walisema tupunguze mzigo ya punda. Esbon Wambugu Njao says Arnold Maliba EKURU AUKOT, very lively and timely discussion. Oben Musumbi says what we need is not more letters but a new spirit, and add that makes political leadership servants and not masters, makes them lovers of people and not users. I think it was on the matter of the spirit and the word and the letter of the constitution. Bob Njagi says EKURU AUKOT, my brother, we all as Kenyans should look forward into the future, not the past. At the time you were pursuing Punguza Mzigo, we already had our initiative WW Free Kenya, just like we have BBI, which is another.
I think Njagi is a very dishonest person. I would say that on this.
He's saying they are open to work with you.
No.
They are open to work with you.
First of all, he came and told me that he's an ODM NEC member, and I even doubt he is.
He used to be.
Yeah, he used to be. Then, but when he came to us, he said to me that he's an ODM NEC member. You know, and so I asked him, you know, you're now coming and telling me to support your. I never even heard about his movement until he approached me. Was it last December? And so I'm asking him, but boss, when we had the bill, the Punguza Mzigo bill, which is really, that was already out there, where were you? Why didn't you come support? This is convenient people. I mean, I don't like working with convenience. And one of the things I don't like, and I'm telling you, Njagi, you're my brother, I know you, I don't like dishonest people.
Oben Musumbe says, Shalom, we talk on the legal minds. My thoughts today, the proponents of VBI have no moral competency to pursue for more letters because they constantly violate the current spirit. For example, Mwende Nzimbi was vetted by the parliament and was found not to serve as Mwinzi actually. All right, so we're actually going to that next. Salim Kino say to those big men. Thumb ups my question: do they have any betrayal in the city? Uhuru, Raila, after this BBI, ODM actually beginning to cry fall. So we can only wait and see. I saw Philip Atala led the bandwagon. James Orengo joined. I saw also Millie Odhiambo ameanza kuingia amesema what is cooking. All right. Rejuso says I would go for Punguza Mzigo and like this free Kenya and Tunza Katiba. What do you guys need to come on board and we support Punguza Mzigo and counter the conmanship in BBI, which is forced down our throats. All right. Esther Mshendere to Mechoka Aki, the BBI is a huge scam. DK Cheboy says tell AUKOT we didn't oppose the Punguza Mzigo, it is the politicians. All right. Maniki says,
I don't blame Wananchi actually. Wananchi supported Punguza Mzigo. They gave me 1.2 million signatures.
Buruko Kinyanya says even the media cannot publish the bill on newspapers for us to read. What is really hidden is the allocation to counties, the only thing we're forced to love. Interesting. James Mwenda says Arnold is right. Informal sector don't get taxed for populist sake. Visit places like Ruaka and you lose count of the number of flats owned by traders in Kikomba. Wow, interesting. Victor says Iko Mingi mingi sana, ujinga iko mingi sana. It's annoying. Hope the BBI thing falls. It's gonna add the common mwananchi much. They just don't see it now. But you're gonna say is very soon we would pay tolls on our newly built roads. Wow, interesting. Honestly, yes, I wish I could call. My present occasion may not allow, but allow me to say all the MCAs that will pass this BBI, Mwananchi should wake up and send them home in 2022. Let them go and feed on the bribe they have received. In fact, ESCC should go, but the same ESCC that is going for Baringo MCAs, I'm not going to on kutuma, should go for whoever and the bribe will they. I think ESCC is the worst. Anyway, Abunga la Mwananchi pia iko wazi. You can call in 0779-800-010 or 779-800-010. Okay, guys, I think you've picked some of that. I saw you guys wanted to respond to some of the comments. Some of the comments that I have.
First of all, let me. I want to say this clearly to Mr. Bob Njagi. Let's avoid politics of convenience. When THIRDWAY Alliance Kenya was pushing the Punguza Mizigo bill, he claims that they are also doing the same thing, and it's not clear to me when they were doing theirs, because I only came to learn about their bill, Free Kenya. And it was only predicated on one single issue: taxation, reduced taxation. So, and the problem in this country is this. I mean, when you're not the one who has started an idea, you don't want to support it, but yet you want other people to support your idea. Anyway, but that's what under the bridge for me. I think one of the beginning points for us to really change this country is to begin with us Kenyans being honest with ourselves first.
Okay.
Before we can even, okay.
Saidia simu kidogo. Hello, jambo.
Hello, habari Gerard.
Salama sana. Arama, hold on the line. Leave the line. Okay, who am I speaking to?
This is Martin.
Yes, Martin.
Yeah, how are you guys doing? I love the show today.
Thank you, sir.
The biggest question I'd want to put to Kenyans is ask them, why would somebody who is leaving office push for an agenda that he's claiming he's not a beneficiary of?
Okay, why would someone who's leaving office push an agenda that they're saying they are not the beneficiaries of?
Yeah, and I also want to ask Kenyans to try to read some history, because if you can remember something that happened in the U.S., whereby Obama appointed a Supreme Court judge in the name of Merrick Garland. Mm-hmm. And the people of the Republicans rejected that person because they claimed that Obama has no right to appoint a judge when he's leaving office. Mm-hmm. And I think Kenyans need to put that thing into the Kenyan context. Why is Uhuru pushing for a BBI document that he's claiming he's not going to be a beneficiary of?
All right, good question.
Yeah.
Asante sana ndugu yangu. I appreciate your support. Joel Arama, you still on the line? Joel Arama. Joel, jambo. Jambo daddy.
Jambo sana bwana. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for the panelists. It's been lively. I've been laughing by myself here. I think I'm crazy. But on a serious note, the issues that have been discussed are weighty, and we need to take action. So first of all, EKURU AUKOT, where do we sign up to stick our neck out, as you have said, because we really need to. If we have to make a difference, we can't just talk. We need to take action. And personally, if that's what it takes, I'm good. I'm ready. So whatever needs to be done, can we join together and do something? Can we have a plan? What do we need to do? Maybe that may, we start small, and we may be able to get in more people to join and make changes. So I like your idea of influencing our people on the local level and tell them, hey, you are getting lost. This is how we need to do it. And maybe even if it force the whole BBI process through the county assemblies, at the end of the day, as citizens, will have the final say. If I can influence my people to vote no, then I should be able to do that. And maybe that way we'll succeed. Hopefully that will make a difference. So that's my contribution today. We have a hope, and maybe by sticking out, we may be able to make the changes and get the right leaders to make our country better than what it is right now.
Okay. Asante sana Harama. Thank you so much Harama for tuning in. Watu wa diaspora wote, salimia watu wa diaspora wote.
Sawa.
Okay, asante. Thank you. Umesikia mambo. I think that those are the things we are going to pick for today, so that we are able to exhaust the conversation.
I think to Martin, he's speaking about why does a person who is leaving office come up with an agenda that might actually go beyond, will take much longer. Of course, he knows the answer. Even as he asked that, probably he was trying to ask Kenyans to actually then reflect and know exactly why somebody is trying to come up with something that will fundamentally alter the way the nation is actually run. Going forward, he's simply ensuring that his interests are taken care of.
Someone actually has been in power for 10 years.
I don't think that at any particular time he was essentially out of power 100%. Yeah, because, when we talk about interest money in politics, so much of our politics is actually taken ransom by interest money and other interests beyond that. That is why the political parties financing laws and attempts at that was to ensure that interest money that then does not bring in rent seeking to get hold of our politics. What we have failed to understand throughout is that, like he said, we are slaves in a farm called Kenya, and that very few people, or rather a few people, are in control of what is happening. We are here just giving them. I don't want even to belabor on that. So for Martin, you know why somebody will try to do that. People just want to ensure that they're in control. Even when they leave, their children can always be in control. And we cheer them along. I don't know whether that is what we call Stockholm Syndrome, where people who actually are in captivity, they fall in love with their captors, and all of a sudden then they defend them. If you were to send in a party to rescue them, they would actually turn and fight against you. So I think as a country, we are suffering from a Stockholm Syndrome.
We have fallen in love with our oppressors.
We have fallen in love with our oppressors. And any other person who tries to come and save us, we turn and fight them. And that is why as many young people, as many progressive people out there, over time, for the last 50 years, different people have come up and told us, hey, good people, we are not in a good situation. I've brought you salvation. And like the children of Israel, they asked Moses, who are you? Who is that person you are telling us? And Moses had to ask God one of the difficult questions. What should I tell the children of Israel that you are the one? Who are you that has sent me? You know how, the audacity of asking the creator of the universe.
Can you ask that guy who is?
As in, who are you? Go and ask that person who's telling you that we should leave Egypt and we go to, as in, who are you? And God had to answer one of the difficult questions of all time. And he simply told him, go and tell them that I am, that I am. It was a difficult question. Even from God's perspective. So every time we as Kenyans have continuously asked our liberators, but who are you? What are you?
So I'm going to be brutally honest with Martin. And I will tell Martin this. Let's not be lied to. President Uhuru Kenyatta has now been president for nearly 10 years. He's doing his last year in office. It's obvious what President Uhuru Kenyatta is doing. Because President Uhuru Kenyatta had the last 9 years to do what he wants to do today. He had all the power to do what he wants to do today or wants to do tomorrow through this BBI. The truth for the matter is that President Uhuru Kenyatta and his surrogates, together with their surrogates, want to protect what is their interest. It's not about Kenyans. As I have said before in this show and many other fora, you make a constitution for the common good of society, not for the common good of individuals. And the fact for the matter is, Uhuru Kenyatta is playing a Putin on us Kenyans. He's playing the Putin card. Basically, if you remember when Putin became president in Russia, after 2 terms, he stepped down. Medvedev became the president, only just told, but he was actually the master behind the presidency. Then he came back to this very date. That's exactly what President Uhuru Kenyatta is trying to do, or is actually doing.
He's putting us.
He's putting us. So it's about interest, and I think, like Akili has explained, if you look at the last 50 years in this country, the domination has been from a tiny minority who have also accumulated so much wealth that they cannot explain to. And for you to be able to protect such wealth, you need power. If you don't have political power, then your interest is actually threatened. But what I think these people are forgetting is that they are very poor students of history. if they studied history at all. They have failed to look at what is happening, what happened in Zimbabwe, what happening in Angola with Dos Santos, what happened in Algeria with, what's the name of that president, Ben Ali, and many, many others, what happened in Sudan, that you can fool people all the time, but you cannot fool, what's that phrase called?
You cannot fool the same people all the
time. But anyway, whatever the case is, that time is coming to an end. And with increased agitation from the ordinary Kenyan, and Kenyans are increasingly becoming knowledgeable and beginning to question actually things. Why is this happening? And I think the truth will come out in a referendum if the trend we are seeing in the county assemblies comes to pass. Because it looks like it's going to pass anyway.
But Wakili, I know you probably have thought this because you're both a political and legal mind. There's a reason why the architects and the machinery that is working around BBI ensured that they had 5 million votes. Whether it was cooked, the signatures they actually took to IBC. It was a demonstration towards something that is they are trying to work around. You know, the threshold, even at the ballot level, you just need about 25% voter turnout. Largely, that's what they are playing around that. And out of about 16 to 17 million registered voters today,
IBC has actually requested for 20 million ballots.
So roughly out of that, but that is a different case. I'll actually come back to that. Because like, for example, when you are running, you realize that IBC has got forms online. But that IBC will insist on giving you a hard copy form from their office. I'll tell you why that has nothing to do with some of these forms, Form 11, those statutory forms you are filling as an aspirant. Those forms, it has nothing specific about it having a logo or anything. It's just that somebody has got a tender to supply those forms. So we have to sustain. It's about sustainability of businesses in other places. But I know the guys who are coming out, the architects of BBI, know that between them, the two people, it's easy for them to raise a threshold of about 5 million people turning out. So, and since there is no strong opposition, even if the voter turnout is low, a simple majority, as in a minority of a people amongst the 5, will just pass it and then they get around with that. But that aside, I wanted to tell Arama spoke very well. But then he spoke about then we need to have hope and stuff. I always need to remind people out there that hope is not a strategy. It is a mistake we do continuously, that we just hope and things will work. If we do not wake up in the morning and do something about our situation, if we do not work this thing, our anger, our fatigue with these things will not change. Just getting tired about it. Even as we speak about that, then it speaks about the generations we have. For me, I still feel, even as a millennial, I still feel that we are the generation that has let this country down.
That's true.
That we grew up. I know we grew up in what we consider is difficulty, but that cannot be compared to those who came ahead of us, the baby boomers. Those guys had much more difficult time than we. But the millennials, and I normally tell them even in places when I'm doing my trainings, that probably this is the generation that might not have a president from amongst them. Because for us, we are so selfish. It's about, everything is about us. We don't think about the country, and we love pointing fingers. After us, there's a generation that is almost equal to us, even though they are not of the age of majority, what we call the Generation Zers. These human beings who were born after 1997, they stretch to 2000. A number of them, we are talking about 3 million of them now have become adults. They now have got IDs, and they are a number of them were picking up IDs plus with their Uduma number, whatever that thing is. So this particular generation is actually more, they love being part and parcel of solutions as opposed to we millennials. Maina Njenga, sad that I can use his example, always said that we are the 1, 2, 3, 4 generation. The millennials, as in you have got one wife, 2 children, a 3-bedroom house, and a 4-wheel drive car. For us, the millennials, we are so selfish. It's so hard to go out and do something. I know we will talk about, but then the guys who are coming behind us, this generation that's about 2-3 million of them now have become adults for the first time. As much as they are not as many as we are, they love being part and parcel of solutions. They are more global, they are more entrepreneurial, and they organize better. I have told guys that when these guys brought in their music, we complained. Do you remember people talking about Ifikie Wazazi? That generation has been able to chase the Niger and Bongo music from our airwaves without asking for youth fund. without asking for those guys actually in their own, and their first music were shot using phones, rudimentary stuff. Those creatures have ensured that the Niger and Bongo music has gone.
Out of the market.
Our generation complained, ndio youth fund ikakuja, women enterprise fund ikakuja, na hizo vitu zingine zote. These guys improvise. They come up with their solutions. So if millennials still think that they are the young people of this country, by the way, you are the people of this country, because ordinarily you are the majority among the voting bloc. So that is where the problem is. And then there's the alpha generation already. So we are not young. Even as you think that we are still using that cliche moving around that millennials. Behind us is Generation Z, and then there are super ultra guys. We are calling now the alpha generation, guys born after 2013. So however much you want to look at that, I think we should stop being a people of hope and work, because today we are the people who then mainstreamed the handout. When I try to run in my village, people will tell me, we are the handoutees. They call themselves handoutees. We say that you are the handouter, and we are the handoutees. They say about it confidently. It's not like kind of they are joking. Now let us go for the handout. And I will show even in the WhatsApp groups here for the people in Matunga and Kakamega. They will tell you, now we are going to listen to those guys and go home with our handout. And it is so sad that up country people don't even take serious money. 30 bob. 200. What are you talking about? We're talking about 30 bob. I give you 100 shillings, mnagawana watu watatu. That is how bad we've actually have got. And then whoever is bringing you that money is the one you are voting for. Okay. So going forward, I think we need to stop talking about hoping and talking about this. We need to tell people that if you do not hope is not a strategy, and if we do not work, we will be here. Even as a person born in 80s, I already have got white hair. I am no longer a child, so I can no longer pretend that I am.
We are no longer young.
In fact, Article 260Q should actually be reviewed. I still have got a problem with the way we define youth as people between 18 and 35. It is 17 cool years. As in, a child who was born when you turned youth becomes a youth when you are still youth. And the UN defines youth as 15 to 24. I think we need to bring that down.
For me, what I would say to young people, or to the youth, again, to be honest, one of the things that disappoints me about this talk about the youth is the failure of the youth to use their own numbers. They keep on complaining. They keep on admitting, like Arnold is saying, that they have admitted that they are handoutees. And it's a shame, because today, if the young people of this country wanted a president of their own, if they wanted a government of their own, they can actually get that government. And like Arama is saying, Arama is asking, where can we sign up? Like I keep on saying, I mean, last week we sent a message to IBC. Stop denying Thirdway Alliance Kenya the relevant information to start the Punguza Mizigo Kenya campaign again. We have requested for the basic information on polling stations, on constituencies, on wards and counties. They have refused to give this information to me. And I want to tell Arama, wait, I'm going to press again this week and next week. Once I get that information, the signing page will be up and ready. You'll sign Punguza Mizigo as you also sign up on what you can do for this country. But lastly, and I just want to remind young people of the wisdom by Frantz Fanon. And Frantz Fanon says that each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. And unfortunately, the young people of this country are actually betraying. They have never found it's their own mission. That their own mission could actually be to change society as it is today, the kind of governance we have today. Because let me tell you, their daily life struggles are felt today. If you think about the 70% unemployment in this country, is the young people who are suffering the most. It's the young people today who are in colleges, who are in universities. Once they get those degrees and they graduate, and every university today in Kenya graduates, conducts graduation ceremonies twice a year, sometimes in June and in December. So where do all these people go to? And therefore, for me, that's why I call upon the youth of this country. You must find your own mission. You either fulfill it or you betray it. This idea of hanging around the political class, the old political class, in your feeling rallies, they are telling you, come and listen to us, even during this pandemic. These folks who are assembling you have got an inpatient cover of at least 10 million Kenya shillings paid by your taxes. You do not even have NHIF. Remember, NHIF, even today, is not applicable when it comes to COVID-19. So I think the people who are betraying their own mission in this Kenya of today are the young people. And I think they need to wake up and smell the coffee. And tomorrow, they can actually form a government of their own if they want it.
I want to get some comments on two issues from you, Daktari, and I want to combine them. First of all, is Mwenda Mwinzi was proceeded to serve duties in North Korea as an ambassador, despite the National Assembly refusing to approve, our appointment. And there seems to be, we're talking about changing the constitution when we are disrespecting what we have already.
Exactly.
There's also the issues of the court. The courts have instructed the government to reverse the transfer of KMC from Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and whatever to defense. Do you think they are going to honor it? These are two dishonors that are happening in between. Mwenda Mwinzi, with the full glare of the executive, has gone to perform a duty, appointed by the executive, bypassed the parliament, and nobody's talking about it. She's already, shaking hands in North Korea and South Korea. And then there's either mambo ya nyama imeenda huko. Nobody's talking. They've said reverse.
So that's why I kept on saying that the idea that we are amending the constitution through BBI has been a lie all along, because we are not even respecting the current constitution as it is. The current constitution has introduced checks and balances, that the executive will nominate a cabinet, cabinet which includes cabinet secretaries and PSS, CASs, and ambassadors and everybody. And then that nominee will then go to parliament for vetting. That is per law, as per the constitution. Once parliament rejects, then the president must submit a fresh name. That has not happened. We saw in the case of, and by the way, let me just put a disclaimer. Mwenda Mwinzi is a very personal friend to me. I mean, we are co-investors in a company together. So I must put that disclaimer of them. nothing
personal.
There's nothing personal about her. But for me, let's stick to the law. The law is very clear. You are nominated, and I'm happy for her. You are nominated, but at least through the process of law, then you are legitimated. Right now, as it is, she's actually our representative in South Korea.
Legitimately.
A very important part.
A very important part in South Korea. But we know that she never went through the process of vetting and therefore legitimization. So it's unfortunate. So again, it comes back to the question of an executive and the person of President Uhuru himself, who has no regard for the rule of law, who has no regard for this constitution, despite having being sworn using the constitution that he will uphold and protect and respect the constitution. He has never done that. He's gone ahead to make certain appointments like the chief administrative secretaries and all that against the constitution. So actually we are being ruled. We are back into a I can't even say a dictatorship democracy, because that's a misnomer. We cannot use the word dictator and democracy at the same time. But we pretend to have used democracy to get into power, but then we go back to dictatorship. I think for me, what I will blame here is the failure of other agents within our governance structure. The failure of the opposition that has since went into bed with government, and just means for me that the people of Kenya were lied to, even by the people that they elected into, say, opposition. They never intended to be the opposition. The intention was to get to power, and how do we sneak ourselves into beginning to eat together with the executive? And like I said, Bitok, in your show previously, if there is one credit we must give Uhuru Kenyatta or Jubilee as part of their genius in the governance of Kenya, is in silencing
the opposition.
The only noise maker who seems to know to have inroads in government, and that was Raila Odinga. Jubilee knew that it's a failed government. It's continuing to fail. It will continue to lie to Kenyans, just like they lied to our children in 2013 that they'll give them a laptop, and they never gave them. Because you can imagine a parent who lies to a child. I mean, just as simple as that. You lie to a child. Yeah? that I'll give you a laptop, ndakupatia peremende, na hakuna peremende. So they knew the only other noisemaker who has got inroads into government, having been a prime minister, being in cooperation with the KANU regime back in the days, is Raila Odinga. How do we silence him? Bring him on board. Once Raila was brought on board, ameingia box. Finito.
Kazi kusha.
So kazi kusha.
Finito.
Yeah.
Haya, you comment on the same thing. The audacity in government to talk about constitutionalism when it continues to molest the constitution.
Well,
Mwende Mwinzi, South Korea already illegally. Nyama iko KDF.
Every time I look at all these things going on, I then go back to one thing, that as we fought the imperial presidency in the past and brought in checks and balances, a phrase he has actually used so many times while we were here, there is one thing in the architecture that we actually assumed. And assumption again is never a factor when you are planning. It's not a factor of planning, but it's important to assume that, especially when you are trying to do projections, that as we put in checks and balances, we gave a lot of power to parliament. We had a lot of faith in them, hoping that because they are many and they are representative of the people, they will actually act in the interest of the people. Today, I can actually say confidently that Parliament is the weakest link in our governance. Because when you talk about legislation, Parliament, knowing too well, and it has got resources and capacity to know, to go out and reach and compare. We have given them a workforce and a very good budget. They have passed, for example, very bad laws, of course, simply because the executive has asked for it. It has actually taken the judiciary to actually intervene and change that. So Parliament lost its place. And one of those factors I actually credit for bringing down Parliament is still CDF. I still insist that if you sat down, we need to have somebody actually doing a paper, good research, and actually just on what impact CDF has had on the quality of Parliament and what they are supposed to do. Because apart from it offending the principle of separation of powers, it has highly compromised these people. Mm-hmm. When is the last time you saw anyone being jailed because of misappropriating CDF? Yet we all know that CDF has been the petty cash for members of Parliament. So they have moved away from their core function. They are busy implementing and doing work that should be for the executive. So Parliament, for us, is the weakest link in our governance. They became a rubber stamp for the executive. At some point when we heard about what Mutahi Ngunyi used to call what is that term again?
The tyranny of numbers.
The tyranny of numbers. It will actually was also before the falling out, and this fallout is actually very good because there's no honor among thieves, so they will call out each other.
Last week EKURU said there's honor among thieves. Last week EKURU said there's honor among thieves.
There's no honor among thieves. Now all of a sudden we are hearing if you stole from the Chinese from this end, the other one reminds you also stole from the other. The problem here is that even as they call out each other, we do not have a critical mass of conscious populace that will take advantage of that and bring down this nonsense.
Okay. So just to prove to you that there is honor. Okay, for Mwinzi.
So for Mwinzi, I am even surprised that we are thinking that Parliament will do anything. Parliament became a rubber stamp of the executive. The only thing, and which I actually think the executive has also been playing around with us, has been on the issue of Article 27. And again, the problem was that even as we designed that, we forgot that there was Article 100. It becomes difficult to talk about Article 27.8 without reading it together with Article 100. So once we have done with the gender issue, the 2/3 principle, then how then do we take care of the youth, the persons with disabilities, the minorities, the marginalized? Those are the 4 SIGs, special interest groups. How do we take care of that? We have forgotten to talk about that. So for Parliament, the President has countermanded Parliament before. They have got a whole function unto themselves, but they have never been able. The only time they come together to actually speak fluently is when it's about their interests, their perks, and that. And I think for Parliament, I do not know how we deal with that. That has to be taken back to Wanjiku. And tell Wanjiku that sometimes I'm actually an apologist to when it comes to how much we pay members of Parliament. If we were to give these members of Parliament whatever money they're asking for and take away their temptation to keep on putting their hands into the till. But then, you know, parliamentarians are busy chasing after tenders. You go to a department, you find them queuing there with you. They are everywhere. If parliament became parliament, then the 2 billion shillings Uhuru is talking about would not be going to waste every day. So that is a big problem that we have. But something else that I think I would actually want to mention is that, of course, we've been talking about our problems and everywhere. Probably we need to talk about the progress of mankind, the march of progress as is happening elsewhere. The US could be a shithole country for all. They've been everywhere doing everything else. I saw them even doing the Jacob's ladder. The guys who've been in the military and the police know the Jacob's ladder. I only just realized that later on, among the people who stormed the Capitol, some of them were even Navy SEALs. Otherwise, I was wondering, wow, would somebody a perfect Jacob's ladder? You know, it's normal when you build a ladder of individuals, human beings, and then have one of you get over you up and scale a wall. Those are those are very military tactics. But then I have seen yesterday we were speaking with you earlier on about the Perseverance, the rover landing on Mars.
Yes.
You know, it's a big thing. There have been about 17 missions. We're talking about lunar missions to the Mars, because sometimes there is a thinking that we escaped from Mars after we messed it up. Then we came to Earth. So human beings have always looked at the red planet. So elsewhere, people are busy, and for the first time, a country that is not from Europe or China also send a rover to Mars. The Saudi Arabians and then the Chinese, of course, are going there, because normally after every 6 years, the loop between Mars and Earth becomes shorter. So all countries that want to explore wait for that particular window, because it's a shorter period. So yesterday, the Perseverance landed on it. For the first time, there is going to be a helicopter.
206 million kilometers.
A helicopter from that particular rover that will try to fly on Mars. The rover will release the helicopter, the small miniature helicopter, to fly and see and try to take over. And for the first time, they're also sending us videos. Of course, the most popular mission to Mars this far has been Curiosity. Curiosity had moved around for some time, and of all those 16, the lunar ones, they've been the sub-lunar ones where they are sending a vehicle and it just goes around Mars. The others about 6. Here we are. We launched our space a program sometimes back. You remember that?
The balloons or what now? The balloons which are shot down.
Even in
Capedo, like
they were not shot down.
Can we even manage air balloons alone?
Those balloons, Google actually folded up that business. As in, we were the only people who took up that particular project. They folded up, I think, last month, and they closed up that particular end. So what am I trying to say? That even as we are obsessed with our ancient way of doing things, our bad manners, not necessarily, bad manners are not even Stone Age. Because we have got a whole. There's a whole.
Only nuclear, is a family.
It's actually they're still pursuing it, and it will cost us about $500 billion to put it up. So it can only be in Western, where there's a lot of water, or in coast, because a nuclear plant uses a lot of water. So those people there has not been serious public participation. And we are people who cannot take care of small things. Small things, but here we want to put up a plant.
But if we cannot even build toilets alone, just for children in the schools, how do you want to go to Mars when you cannot build a toilet?
Even take care of a nuclear plant, even as people try to get out of that. Of course, it becomes very complex when you talk about issues to do with coal. We will bring in issues of environmental, the politics around the environment, even though I still ask people that the biggest plant, the Volkswagen, the biggest plant in Stuttgart, runs on coal, 100%. Even as we get around that, there's the economics around it and a lot of it. Everybody else is trying to run away from nuclear, but it's still cheaper. How are we then positioning our country to get to a level where then it will be possible for us to move masses? When you're talking about 16 million people who are structurally unemployed, that people naturally will be busy trying to do something. But is that money enough to even... do they even get livable wage out of it? So how can we move those masses to get some decent earning? I'm not even asking for them to get proper money. If we still are thinking this way, we are lied to and no one can question a very complacent population, because again, sometimes I know people like Daktari here get tired of being the general managers of the country, because you are trying to remind people and poking their conscience, and their conscience is dead. So even we as a people out there need to wake up every morning and realize that for every shit that is out there, we are contributors. And that no one has got the burden
Okay, guys.
of bringing you up this far. So even as a people, we really need to move away from being complacent and acting like we are helpless.
being
We are not.
aggressive.
We are enablers to what is happening.
Right.
Because
Someone
we
has
vote.
mentioned that actually we are 16 minutes past time, but someone has mentioned that we are not badly off. We are flying toilets. As I hear the places, you're not very far off. Now, Daktari, while Kenyans were doing all this push and pull and talking about BBI, watching the drama in the county assemblies, Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka were getting 200 million each as pension grants, to enjoy retirement. And ODM is actually finishing acquiring 4 helicopters for the campaigns and sound system from America, gearing up the campaigns. You'd wonder where they're getting 4 helicopters. ODM for Ubaba, we know. All right. Well, also that was happening. The NHIF, which you just mentioned, that was increased to 6,000 shillings a household.
For me, it's a tragedy that, one, we are allowing pensioners. The word pension means that you have actually retired and you're actually already enjoying retirement benefits after serving the public. And yet we are still entertaining these individuals who are retirees into our public space. It's a con game. And I think if Raila and Raila and Kalonzo are now rethinking that they don't want to retire, then they must refund the money they've been getting from taxpayers' money, because that's already contravenes the whole concept of retirement. Why are you surprised that there are helicopters and choppers being bought by ODM? Remember, ODM got how many? Is it 6 billion? Last
from the political parties.
From the political parties fund last time. So don't be surprised. Why? I mean, after all, like we have said here, it's about interest. Who else can protect the interest of the so-called oligarchs, quote unquote, in Kenya, other than the people who have been with them all along? They are surrogates. It's only the Railas, it's only the Kalonzos. But Bitok, when we talk about these individuals, and I've tried to really urge you, let's not talk about these individuals.
It was actually the issue.
Yeah.
The issue, what I was looking at is the money that's being left out, the Mwananchi is being done. I was actually a follow-up from what my good friend was talking about, the susceptibility of the Mwananchi. We sit and say, we've like...
As you can see, they don't care about Mwananchi, because by the time you increase NHIF to 6,000, okay, is the economy supportive of that increment in the first place? Because if you are not giving Kenyans opportunity to be able to make a living on to earn a living, to earn salaries, how then do they pay NHIF? And don't forget, we are increasing this money during a pandemic. Government is not telling Kenyans clearly whether we are actually out of danger from this pandemic or not. We know we are not out of it, because the rest of the countries, in the world, are actually struggling with it. Why are we increasing NHIF when we cannot even use it to treat ourselves if you caught COVID today, God forbid?
NHIF only takes care of, in fact, if you get those terminal diseases like cancer, the only people who have got a little bit of leeway with the NHIF are civil servants. The rest of you, like somebody said, you are being told kana mama yako. That's what we are being told.
Haya, kaeni na mama zenu.
But then before,
as we go,
before you wind up, I just want to say this. That
your last,
one of the
your tackle of the day.
One of the news piece that we actually have not spoken about is that 6 out of 10 Kenyans cannot afford meals today. It's in the papers today. 6 out of 10 Kenyans cannot get proper meals, which means we only have got about 4 who could put some semblance of 3 meals on the table. And out of those 4, we even don't know how they are making it. So we are at a time when even as people try to engineer their way around our state, I said when I started that we live in a country where our economy has been engineered in a way that it serves a few politicians. The state in itself and all its instruments exists not for our good. Yet we know that there are 3 functions to how a government then should function. A third state, which is the civil society, to help people organize themselves away from government and away from the corporate world, the commerce bit of it. And then a state that is able to give goods across the country, at least equitably, public goods. And then the most important bit is there being some semblance of law rule of law as the stabilizer, as the salt that then graces all these things. So that once you have got those 3 ingredients, you can come up with a country, then you will bring in a common language where people can speak one language. But that said, is that even as we speak all these things, one thing continues, that Mwananchi does not care about themselves. They
And
don't.
I think we deserve it.
That is why when you talk about politicians don't care about Mwananchi, you don't even care about yourself.
Why should
You're
you care
calling
about
yourself a handoutee, for example. What then stops me as one who wants to capture state? I am a driver of rent seeking, for example. What stops me from going and getting money, whatever way I can get it, then give you a little bit of a handout and then take control of this this thing as we move on. So we are at a place where, from whatever way you say, I have always thought that probably if things get bad, we might wake up. If you are unable to afford ugali for your children, then probably we will wake up and say, no, things need to change. But so long as the economy can stabilize and we are bribed with a few good things here and there, then the kinds of Bitok, so long as Bitok wakes up in the morning, he comes here and he can raise a little bit of money to go around, take good selfies and put on social media, he feels good. Probably things should escalate further for a proper national remaking moment. Otherwise, from where we are, we will be forced to swallow BBI as it is, and we will live with it. You know how Patni will say, they will ask, the court will confront Patni with facts. You said this and this is the established, which means you lied. And Patni would answer the court, I can live with it, Your Honor. You know how
So my talk of the day is
I
this.
think we deserve this. You know, Ekuru,
My
we
talk of
deserve
the day
this.
is this bit talk, and I'm speaking to Kenyans. I just want to tell Kenyans that the country we call Kenya belongs to all of us in equal measure. Unfortunately, we have surrendered it to a tiny minority of individuals who behave as if Kenya is their bedrooms, their living rooms, their homes. They can decide to change it whichever way they want it. So it's really up to us Kenyans. But because we have been saying this over and over again to Kenyans, that you need to wake up and change. So I'm going to be a sadist today. And I say this, I want Kenyans to feel the greatest of pain from the current leadership. Let them suffer enough, wasikie uchungu kabisa, until when they wake up and know that they're actually being buried alive as they can see. And I hope that's when Kenyans will probably see the light or see the sense and wake up. Let Kenyans feel the pain because they are responsible for this leadership, because of their sycophantic following, because of their tribalistic tendencies. Wacha tusikie uchungu mpaka wakati tutaamka tuseme enough is enough.
Congratulations, Kenyans. Let's continue suffering. Daktari ametuambia tuendelee kuumia. And I think we deserve this. The more I look at it, the more I lose sympathy for our people because we see all these things happening. We get agitated and then we move on. We talk about fuel taxes being added. I remember there's a time that the taxes already had a big time, even had a debate in parliament. And the parliament was bribed. And we got the fuel increase. And we said, you're going to demonstrate. We've lived with it. Like Maliba said, I think we deserve all this.
When I was promoting Punguza Mizigo, there are certain places in Kenya I could not go. And when I went there, they would tell me, no. Usiseme kitu. Wewe ongea tu mambo yako punguza mzigo, lakini usiseme mambo ya mtu fulani because ni kiongozi wetu. So let Kenyans suffer.
Let's suffer.
Let's suffer.
All right. Thank you. Let's suffer. It's always a pleasure to have you, gentlemen. Thank you. Sheria Wiki.
You were born to suffer.
You were born to suffer. Maybe we need to start playing that reggae. Born to suffer.
Lakini
we are born to suffer. Born to suffer. Let's continue suffering until we feel enough. And I think it will be very impossible to have a revolution in this country because even within ourselves, we still have the demarcations. When you collect poor people, then they'll watakutana mahali moja, then they say now there's one who is richer than us, then now they segregate that one, another one anatoka mahali fulani, community fulani, with that segregation within the poverty bracket. But anyway, guys, it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for the contribution that we've been making. Martin Elena says I'm with Aukot on this one. Let us continue suffering till we wake up. We'll deserve it. Sakongi Bagat Aukot, are you an optimist or a perfect pessimist? Let's suffer. All right. But we understand this BBI is the fact should eat or help us properly. Anyway, guys, it was always a pleasure to have you. you and wish you a very great weekend. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you again on Monday on Common Sense with Eric Mwange, CEO, Maridadi Motors, and Captain Collins Wanderi. Until then, bye-bye and take care. Enjoy your weekend. Let's suffer. It's another time to wake up and suffer. Kesho, let's wake up and suffer. We suffer for this until tutakuwa werevu zaidi. This is the tackle. The tackle ends now. Bye-bye. Signing out.